Hello and welcome guys. This time I'm jumping into PUBG to look into arguably the best weapon in the game, the 7.62mm DMR that has semi and full auto capabilities, the MK14 Enhanced Battle Rifle. This weapon can drop enemies quite literally like flies. As a DMR it decimates, but since it has full auto setting, how viable is it in close range? As always, let's hop in and check out the data. Since we've not checked the MK14 reloads, let's check it for both loaded and ready to fire timings. So looking at these results, for a loaded full reload there is absolutely no difference in any of the magazine attachments. For half reloads, we can see a little benefit from the quick draw reloads, but a normal reload seems to be the fastest over anything. Of course, this is most beneficial if you're reloading and can pick up an item from the ground to immediately cancel the rest of the reload animation. Moving on to the ready to fire reloads though, one of the biggest questions I see is whether an SR DMR attachment is better on DMRs than AR attachments. Let's have a look. Quick draw magazines have a very large benefit on full reloads over the other attachments. Looking into our half reload, there is still some difference, but the time difference isn't as big, although you'd still save slightly over half a second. Now picking up the SR versus AR attachments to compare. In both instances you can only see a couple of hundredths of a second to favour one of the attachments, and for this reason I would argue that there is basically no difference between the two types of attachment. Let's move on to spraying with the MK14. With its high recoil, the attachments are very important. We'll start with the AR attachments, and then move on to SR and compare the better attachments. I also opted to keep the spray pattern in for when the gun is naked. This helps to show the relativity of the attachments in a better light. For the MK14, I decided to do 15 spray patterns as it only contains 20 rounds in a magazine. These tests give slightly more accurate representation to my normal 10 total sprays. Let's make this data into a more readable pattern using the trees. We'll start with the cheek pad. This attachment is individual, and so it complements anything else here. Clearly it is one of, if not the most important attachment for the MK14 when spraying. Without the cheek pad you will have a lot of horizontal movement in your spray which will knock your shots off target. The suppressor has very little effect. In fact, it seems to make the spray patterns wider in the latter parts of the spray, so it's best to only use it for stealth. Now onto the last two attachments, the compensator and the flash hider. With the great vertical control, the compensator definitely has an edge over using no attachment, and if you can hit your spray in the first couple of shots then this works fairly well. However, with the incredible recoil that the MK14 has, you will be much better off using a flash hider, and I'll explain why. We need to put these two trees together, but we just have a mishmash of colours and it's difficult to understand. So instead, I'll highlight the outline of the spray patterns and we can use that to compare the two together. Here we can see that the flash hider has superior control over the horizontal movement in a spray, which will allow you to remain on target more often. The flash hider, for once, beats the compensator, which will throw your aim off a lot more. Moving on to the SR attachments, again we threw in 15 sprays to make up for the lower magazine capacity, which will give us better and more reliable information. Let's make these into trees. Looking at these spray patterns, it's interesting to note that again the suppressor has no effect on recoil, but the SR version doesn't seem to affect the horizontal movement negatively like the AR suppressor did. In fact, the spray pattern looks a little tighter, actually benefiting the spray ever so slightly. The flash hider again keeps things very tight, but a couple of the sprays did veer off, otherwise I think this attachment could easily be the best. The SR compensator is a very different story to its AR counterpart though. It has much better horizontal control and the vertical assistance is still there too. As the compensator is the clear winner of the SR category, let's see how it compares in the outline category against the AR attachments. With the SR compensator in purple, you can see how it compares to the flash hider and compensator from the AR category. It's extremely competitive, but if you have no extended magazine, the AR flash hider is the better attachment with better control for the first 10 rounds. However, if you have an extended mag, then I would say the SR compensator just takes the win here, as it also seems to hold its spray more centered. It's time to look at the MK14 on SemiAuto. What works best for hitting those long range shots? Here are the AR tests, but let's start with the cheek pad. The main thing to notice is how tight the results of each category are. In the other attachments, there's some gaps that we can see, but the cheek pad really does keep everything very close together. Again, being a standalone attachment, it will only assist in the other attachments you take for this gun. As we expect, the suppressor is a stealth-only attachment with no effect on the results from a naked MK14. The flash hider and compensator are very closely matched, so let's box these results up and merge them together to get a better look. The results actually show that they were exactly the same on their maximum horizontal movement, but that the compensator wins ever so slightly on vertical control. The deciding factor here is you. If you intend on using the MK14 for spraying at any time, take the flash hider, as the difference here is very small and the flash hider is superior for spraying. But if you have a good assault rifle like the M416 as a secondary and you only want the MK14 as a DMR, then the compensator will likely give you marginally better results. Onto the SR attachments, the suppressor is still only for remaining hidden. The compensator seems to have the edge here, although the flash hider does bounce higher, but the resting positions are pretty even. Despite this again, depending on your playstyle at the time you get these attachments, if you are going to use the MK14 for spraying, then the compensator is a must-have attachment, especially if you have an extended magazine. If not, then the flash hider is a great alternative unless you can safely find a compensator to swap out. I really hope this guide has helped you guys. I know the MK14 isn't the most common weapon on the battlegrounds, but it is certainly one of the deadliest. And knowing how to use it properly will make sure you are better equipped than your enemies. If you have a weapon you would like to see me test, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.